Although the World Health Organization recently announced the discovery of a new variant of the COVID-19 virus, which it claimed was first reported on December 10th, somewhere in France. Scientists insist that the new variant known as IHU had been around even before the Omicron variant. According to researchers, IHU reportedly has 46 mutations. IHU variants keeps attracting the interest of researchers and continue to raise concerns among the public. What is the level of preparation of third world countries, especially on the African continent? What are the peculiarities of this new variant? What forms of intervention are required to contain this variant? Dr. Rukevwe Ugwumba, an associate professor of clinical surgery and family health consultant, University of Saskatchewan, Canada, I hope I got that right, now joins us to help a better understanding of this COVID-19 variant. Good morning, doctor. You're welcome to... Good to have you join us.
Good morning. Hi. Nice to meet you again.
Thank you very much. I didn't get the name of that town right. I hope that you will correct
Saskatchewan.
me.
Saskatchewan.
Thank
you should know this by now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you're right. IHU is in the news now. WHO says, don't worry that much. It's on our radar, but then it doesn't have that much of anything to worry about. But we know what WHO also said when Omicron emerged, that don't worry too much, is a mild variant. But then WHO changed its mind, a few weeks after, saying that people have to be careful, people are being hospitalized, people are dying, including those who have had double jabs and even boosters. How much should we be worried about IHU? Is it limited to France? And what sort of preparation do you think that countries like Nigeria and the whole of Africa should have for this new variant?
Yeah, thanks very much. We all know that COVID has been here since 2019, hence it's called COVID-19, and we are now in 2022. Natural history of viruses, especially the coronaviruses, they will mutate to be able to stay in the environment. And we know, as you said, the mutations are happening. And in fact, you had mentioned that this new IHU variant was seen in December, but I think the IHU comes from the institution who cloned it first in Marseille, in France. And it was actually, I think, first discovered in November from a traveler that came from Cameroon. And since then, they haven't even seen any new cases in Cameroon. And I think about 12 cases have been isolated in France. So we know that this variant has been around for a while, at least since November. We know that it has at least 46 mutations, which you have said, which is quite a few more than the Delta variant, which is the more recent variant that had about 37 mutations. And this is a different virus in the sense that it was even named after the institution that cloned it, whereas the others, Omicron, Delta, is after the Greek alphabet. So what's the significance of this new variant? Like you said, it's still quite new. We're still studying it. Well, I think it has had an opportunity to show itself. And so far, we haven't really heard much about it until now. So that's optimistic. Again, this Omicron, which is very, very infectious, but less deadly than the Delta, has been around as well. And again, different countries are doing different things about it. Currently, I'm in the UK, where I crossed the border a couple of days ago. And I was very pleased that much that was done. I mean, we just had to book a lateral test, which is not even a PCR test, on arrival after day 2. And then if you test negative, you're good to go. For those countries that the vaccination programs have been recognized. And of course, I'm fully vaccinated. So going back to this variant, what does it mean? We know that it has a lot more mutations. We know that the COVID virus has been causing a pandemic for at least 3 to 4 years now. And we know that several million people have died. And we know that Nigeria, unfortunately, we're still in a developing country that has not vaccinated the population adequately, so we don't even have the chance. Now, we know that how we blocking this pandemic from spreading, from killing people, from ending us in ICU, where we know we don't have the infrastructure to support very sick people. We need to prevent people getting the virus. And if we can't prevent them getting the virus, we want to prevent them spreading it. We know that this virus spread is related to travel, especially international travel. Of course, you know how the omicron started in Botswana and sequenced in South Africa. You know all that controversy on Africa again. They said this came from Cameroon, but we know that no person in Cameroon is currently being infected. But we know that traveling, monitoring the borders, surveillance is how we know what the variants are. Why are the variants important? We don't know which one will be the next deadly one, the most infectious one. We know that the virus is working hard to stay in this environment since it came from Wuhan, China lab, which we know that's where it started. And so we as Nigerians, what do we need to do? We need to get vaccinated. This is really important because we know that the virus has been evading the vaccine, especially this Omicron variant. We know that people who had 2 vaccines were still getting the virus, but they were getting milder infections and they weren't dying or getting the ICU from that. So we know vaccination helps. That's hence the 3rd dose. That's why everyone's recommended to get the booster shot, especially if you're an adult. And even now it has gone down in some countries. And we even hear that Israel is recommending the 4th dose for the elderly and immunocompromised. So Nigerians, we need to get vaccinated. We need to get the vaccine there. We need to get the vaccine on board. The second thing is the simple things that worked ever before the vaccines came on board. We need to social distance. We need to hand wash. We need to wear masks. I think mask is probably the singular most effective barrier for this. We know that we can't afford another lockdown. Currently in Toronto, in Canada, we're in another lockdown again. All the schools are online. Most businesses have said, shut down cinemas and all that, don't go, and restricted to 50 persons again. In England, there's no such a thing. My daughter is in school in the UK, and she's actually having in-person classes from tomorrow. That's why I came to the UK. So what am I saying? Nigeria cannot afford a lockdown. The UK have seen that they don't want to afford a lockdown. So their sets of rules are different from ours in Toronto. Nigerians need to know that this virus is still here. It's mutating. It can cause a lot of havoc. If it does catch on to be the deadly Delta variant, we can die. We don't know which variant you're going to get. Whenever you're out and about, COVID is still spreading. The Delta variant is still here. It hasn't been extinct. And new variants are coming. So bottom line is we're ready for this pandemic by being the single most best line of defense against this coronavirus pandemic.
Right. Thank you for that. Now, like you said, we're continuing to see the virus mutate. Well, last week, President Buhari, during an interview, said that Nigeria is working to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. I mean, which is good news. But, you know, as the federal government works towards achieving this goal, they are also battling the issue of vaccine hesitancy at the moment. Now, it is estimated that less than 4% of Nigerians have been fully vaccinated. Where do you see the most challenge in combating this virus here in Nigeria? And what should the relevant authorities be doing at this point to position the country for adequate response when it comes to this particular virus?
Thanks. The vaccine hesitancy is all over the globe. There's lots of people, for example, in my practice, that are questioning the evolvement of the vaccine is too quick. You know, this pandemic is killing people quickly. That's why they have to do something. So we have to educate the public. There's misinformation and disinformation out there. Misinformation saying that it's actually the vaccinated that's creating the new variants, whereas it's the unvaccinated that when the virus jumps into you has a big fresh lab, if you will, to mutate. And the vaccinated are blocking those mutations and actually causing very mild illnesses. The first thing I will ask is how many millions of doses have we got of the vaccine? We know those recent vaccine wastage, millions of doses were destroyed, which is quite unfortunate because I still know people even calling me to ask me, where can I get vaccinated? They want to get vaccinated, but no availability to where they can get the vaccine. So these are issues. So again, the public health, the CDC, the Primary Healthcare Development Agency in Nigeria needs to do more. Know that the MTN, the Glow subscribers, they get text every time for whatever subscription. They need to use that means to let people know where they can get the vaccines. We need to make sure the vaccine storage is adequate, because if you don't store them properly, it's like giving water, you might as well not bother. So these are issues we want to, the other Nigerians that went to the UK the other time, they had full vaccine passport for the Omicron. When they checked, they never had any antibodies. And so if you've been vaccinated, you have antibodies, and the boosters are meant to boost that. So the information I'm trying to tell Nigerians this morning is look for the nearest primary healthcare agent center where the vaccination isn't happening. Try to key in. Whenever you open the vial of the vaccine, it has to be used, otherwise it will be wasted, because storing the vaccine after you open the vial it's not feasible. So we want to let you know that as the vaccines are coming, you go and get them. The government has a lot to do to let people know that these vaccines are available. Again, how many million doses? We know that the two main vaccines are being used are the Moderna, the Pfizer. We were using AstraZeneca in Nigeria. Again, we're relying on donations from international agencies. I'm very pleased when the president mentions that Nigeria is developing a vaccine, means we are moving our research forward. But how close are we to that? And of course, before you give someone jobs, you need to do clinical trials. I'm not sure where they are with that. So again, we need to be proactive. We can't keep relying on foreign agencies and foreign governments to, if you will, dash those vaccines. Where Nigerians are very brilliant. We have labs, we have NAFDAC labs, and we can do that as well.
All right, Dr. Ugwumba, please do stay with us. We will go on a quick commercial break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation on the IHU variant with you. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. And thanks, Dr. Ugwumba, for staying with us. Let me ask you this. A lot of health professionals and doctors all over the world have been saying this, and it's gaining momentum. Is Omicron the herd immunity thing that we've all been waiting for? Because what people are basically saying that it looks like everybody will, one way or the other, get it. It is mild. It might not do anything to you much, but then it gives you a kind of protection. So do you think Omicron is playing the role that the vaccines ought to have played without the boosters that do not seem that it will end anytime soon?
It's a very interesting question. I'm not really sure how to answer that, apart from the fact that perhaps we should all take the jab and catch Omicron, to be honest, because we know that the natural immunity from the virus will target only certain variants. And when it mutates, you may not be covered. We also know that the vaccine hasn't protected. In fact, the virus has been vaccine evasive. So the scenario will be to, of course, do what we've asked you to do, take the vaccine. And if we, by some of the fortunate means, is the unfortunate now, catch Omicron, then your antibody levels are high. So why are we giving several doses? Why are we saying get a third dose? It's to increase your chances of blocking the virus with your antibody levels. We know that the vaccine uses various parts of the virus to create antibodies in you. That's why perhaps again, the infection doesn't land you seriously ill with the breathlessness and the respiratory distress syndromes and ICU and death. And so, yes, we've seen that Omicron has infected a lot of people, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. We know that it hasn't caused as much havoc. In fact, the few people that have died from Omicron have comorbidities and have not been vaccinated. So, yes, we are hoping that some natural immunity will come from a lot of people being infected. We know that the more you have antibodies, the chances of new mutations happening are not there. The chances that this will end as a pandemic and become, the worst case scenario being like an annual flu virus, where every year you get a jab as a booster for the flu virus, for influenza virus. This is what's currently obtained. Every year we anticipate the genetic changes in the influenza and we prepare vaccines in advance. This winter, we already had the flu jabs, most of us, especially in the healthcare industry. And so we know that eventually that's what will happen. Again, I'm always suspicious about the big pharma, wanting to give us more doses because it's big money. Obviously, it's much more beneficial to give vaccines than, say, tablets, for example, because the vaccine delivery actually involves skilled personnel, syringes and whatnot, and storage and all that. And so I'm always concerned whether they're just pushing their vaccines. But the truth is, new things are coming up every day. We have very effective medicines now against COVID that have been tried. And in fact, I think the FDA actually allowed for some to be used to treat COVID. So COVID is going to end. This pandemic is ending. I don't see it going really much further in 2022, where we're going to be having lockdowns. Like I said, even England, they're done with it. I mean, my child is going to classes, in-person classes, most of it, whereas all the classes are being cancelled in Canada. Maybe Canada can afford that. We're a smaller population as well. And we're very, very widespread. There's so many time zones, like 5 time zones in Canada, whereas it's just the one in the UK. So Nigerians, what do we need to do? We need to not catch any virus because we don't know what variants you're going to get. If you unfortunately catch the Delta, it's still very deadly. It's killing people. We don't have ICU beds. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't even have the personnel, neither the hospitals. So yes, we don't want people catching COVID because we don't know what variant it is. And if you're going to choose, then I would say choose Omicron. We don't know much about the IHU because it's still not being studied, and we haven't seen a lot of cases. So even though it has a lot of mutations, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. And there's several other mutations that have not been mentioned because they haven't caught on. And so we're hoping this is the end of the pandemic finally. For everyone, I would say just do what's wise. I know Nigeria has not really observed any lockdown since I think second or third wave, and I'm happy about that because the small scale industries and small businesses will not survive because they actually rely on going out on a daily income. But while you're out and about, and I have been in Nigeria recently, and of course there weren't any masking and all that. And, like I said, a lot of people thought they had malaria. And when they went and checked, they actually had COVID. And so a lot of people have got this new variant. And so maybe this is the best last hope for this pandemic. We'll see. Probably we'll talk about this later on again.
Well, as we wrap up our conversation, health experts are saying that Nigeria needs to triple its vaccination drive from, just over 100,000 doses a day to meet its target of inoculating more than half of its population by the end of next year. Now, what can be done to achieve this beyond exploring options to acquire or purchase vaccines through the COVAX facility? You know that last month, Nigeria destroyed more than 1 million expired vaccines because some of the vaccines donated, had that short shelf life with only about a few weeks left to administer the shots. Now, I'd like your reaction to that really quickly and what it portends with regards to vaccines donated to Nigeria and the continent at large. Briefly, please.
Well, beggars, can you really be choosers? Okay, will I give you a vaccine that is 2 years of shelf life when I need it for myself, right? So these countries that are dashing you the vaccines, if you will, actually still have the need to vaccinate their own populations. And so you're asking for donations, you should be ready to administer the doses. As you get them, you give them out. There's lots of Nigerians actually begging to be vaccinated, whereas there's still vaccine hesitancy. So it's really a big drive for community to know that the vaccine is important. And I'm talking community leaders. Recently, I became an Olorugun, for example. So in my community, I can tell my village chiefs and the king to have the town hall meetings, town criers, telling them this is the vaccine date, this is where the vaccine's happening, just getting the message out there. Regarding the number of doses, is far, far inadequate for Nigerians. We're 200 million strong peoples. And so how do you say 4 million people vaccinated will ever reach herd immunity if an Omicron, for example, doesn't give us some antibodies? So again, that's where the federal government needs to come in. This is a federal government issue. This is not a state government issue. The federal government like I said, Mr. President had made a comment, which is a very big statement about Nigeria making vaccines. We need to do more of that. There's lots of African countries actually making vaccines as well, not just Nigeria. So we need to key into that research and make our own vaccines. We need to take whatever is given to us seriously. It's not very encouraging when you get something and it's wasted. 1 million more doses, we could have been 1 million more vaccinated. And we know the vaccines need 2, sometimes 3 doses now. And so we can't afford any wastage. The storage is very critical. We have power issues. Okay, we're using solar fridges to carry the vaccines. Is that really adequate? You understand? So the power grid needs to work as well. So many infrastructural problems. Of course, the roads, the transport, things like that. We have a lot of big people. I saw in the interlude, there was a TOE Foundation. Tony Blue is actually my friend. People like that, Dangotes and all that, should partner government in this very important public health concern. Safety concern. They need to help us, private sector, to get people vaccinated.
Dr. Rukevwe Ugwumba, thanks so much for joining us from the UK and for that hint of a good news that it looks like all this, will not last for too long anymore, given what is happening all over the world. Thank you so much.
We're optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
We're optimistic. And hopefully the series of the jabs will not become mandatory anymore. Thank you so much.